Hello fellows, today I want to talk about the loop of deadlines. So what is that? So once you are setting up deadlines and you see that the deadlines are actually working, you start to develop habits. And this is the problem with the human being. And this is of course not only in the team, it is an entire organization, where you then see that if someone is setting deadlines, you suddenly have them everywhere. When you succeed once, then you succeed twice. And the idea behind the deadline is to set a specific date where a specific scope of things should be done. So it's a little bit like the get shit done principle. And it sounds great, right? So you have external motivation, you get things done, and yeah, you have something you can predict, and it's in some form deterministic. The problem is you don't get out of that anymore, and you are in a constant state of stress with the entire team, which means that you will always go from the next milestone to the other. And to get out of there or break out of there, it is actually necessary to develop or unlearn habits and develop new habits. So what can be a new habit and why should we use it? So for example, what is actually good for a successful team? A deadline is something which is oftentimes brought up on the team from someone else. So it's an imperative principle. Someone else tells you what to do until when. So you are not autonomous. You will have problems taking ownership in that moment. You will have problems taking responsibility, because the entire responsibility is to get things done as fast as possible, because the scope is already defined. So you don't need to think about the scope. You don't need to think about innovating, because every form of innovation you do will make it harder for you to actually be on time. So you have an artificial limitation, which is time. You have a specific time frame, which means that there is a concurrency between time and scope. And scope is all about possible innovation. So if you want to innovate something, if you want to do something better than it was beforehand, you need to have more time budget to get this extended scope done at some point. If you don't have that, you can't do that. But since you have a fixed deadline, means you can't basically change anything to get things better. And this is a big problem. So deadlines are against better quality, which means that deadlines are at best quality. So you define a quality and you maybe reach it. But the problem with that is you don't know when you start to work on things if the initial definition is actually good quality or not. You will find out later when you get feedback from clients, users, the market, and so on. So is it actually then a good practice to go with deadlines? Sometimes you need them, no question. I experience them from time to time, and I personally think they bring me forward, but they're in the same moment not really helpful to develop over time. They're just there to get things done. But what can we do to actually get better in the things we do, right? So how can we enhance things? How we can get better as a development team? How can we improve things? This is the big question. And to do that, we definitely need to find tactics how we can get continuous feedback on things we do and cut things into smaller scopes. So instead of saying we have a deadline in 2 weeks, we need to get this stuff done, we basically say, okay, what do we want to deliver today? What do we want to get done today, at latest tomorrow, right? So that we can get, after 1, 2, 3 days, feedback about the stuff we have created today. This is about innovation, because in that moment we learn way more in smaller iterations about what we have created as software engineers, as developers. And this is extremely important. This is valuable. This is valuable for the business. So business people who have tech teams in place, they should be aware of that, as well as the tech people themselves. So just go with small iterations. This is the idea of MVPs anyway, isn't it? To measure market fits and prove those things. It is all about hypothesis. So is that business idea, is that feature, is that change worth pursuing? So you can already get the first feedback just by, having just a percentage of the feature ready in production and ask the first people you trust about the first feedback. Then you know if it's worth working those things or not. And the developers working on that stuff are way closer connected to the business. So they are more connected to the potential outcome because they have an effect on the outcome. They are owners, partly owners of what happens there. And this is then easy to take responsibility. And it would be very hard otherwise. So this is the reason why so many development teams don't take responsibility. They just have accountability because they have a contract, but no responsibility. Responsibility is something you take as a human being because you want to take ownership of something and you want to make this better. And in that kind of flow, when this is a normal practice, so instead of having deadlines, you continuously work to improve things and get feedback from someone else, which is then the credibility you work for, right? You work for credibility. The credibility is how good you work and how good this stuff actually becomes. So the better the outcome, the better your credibility. It will grow. And this is what makes software engineers then that effective. So imagine that. A person who is working intrinsically every day to get this stuff better is worth so much more than someone who's just working down tickets. Yeah, stupidly actually. This is what we do when we work on tickets defined by someone who is totally disconnected from the development. How can I describe that different? I was doing that for such a long amount of time, and every time I've done that, there was basically stagnation. There was this total stallment of the process. And in that moment, when you were thinking outside of the box, how can you improve things? Sometimes even switching priorities as an engineer, saying, I need to work now on something different because there is more value in the outcome than working on the actual ticket. So don't just blindly get things done. Instead, think about which are the things you really need in the next days to ship for someone to take a look at, give you feedback, evaluate, and think further. Those are the things which matters. This is the fine-tuning of business, what we need. And this is how we connect development and business together, especially in small companies, tech-driven companies. That is so important. That is so important. I can't even stress that enough, how important it is to bridge that gap between tech and business, because this is just one team. There are no multiple teams. This is just one big department. And we need to learn about that. This is extremely important. Think about that. You need to reduce stress by delivering continuously and getting feedback continuously. This is actually not only an engineering strategy, it is a business strategy. It is a business strategy. So try it out. Go away from deadlines, because deadlines doesn't lead you to any improvement. It is just stagnation. It's just getting things done and hoping for the best. It is not proving hypothesis correctly. You are not in control of what you actually do right now, because you need to follow a rigid plan for the next days or weeks to come. And you don't want to follow a rigid plan when you want to be an agile company, isn't it? So think about that, take a look at that, try it out for yourself, and yeah, just give me feedback if that was helpful for you. I wish you a great day and have a nice after work. Goodbye everyone.